So let's talk about this World Heavyweight Championship tournament that is still currently in progress. We had a pair of triple threat matches both on Raw Monday night and on SmackDown on Friday night. The winners of those two triple threat matches would then meet at the end of the show. Did that on Raw, did that on SmackDown. The finalists would then meet at Night of Champions to crown a new champion. On Monday night, we had Damian Priest, Seth Rollins, and Shinsuke Nakamura in the first of two triple threat matches. The other one was Finn Balor against The Miz against Cody Rhodes. The thing about the tournament matches, and again, it's not a traditional tournament in the way that an 8-man, for example, elimination bracket normally would be. And I think that would have made more sense, and they could have stretched it out to this week. But the one good thing about it is that we got a lot of good wrestling on the shows this week. And we had these matches that at least felt like, okay, there's something at stake, right? There's something at stake. Whatever you think of the world title and that whole situation, at least they're fighting for something, right? And that's never a bad thing. So I enjoyed the matches, for the most part. I did think the SmackDown matches overall were better than the ones on Raw, although the final with Rollins and Finn Balor on Monday was better than the final or semifinal with AJ Styles and Bobby Lashley on Friday. And credit to Bobby, because Bobby got his head split open, was bleeding all over the place in the first match, and then came back out and wrestled for a second time. Hat tip to him for that. But on Monday night, Cody Rhodes was part of this tournament. And Cody Rhodes really should have nothing to do with any of this, but it seemed pretty clear how this was going to go after he beat Brock Lesnar at Backlash, that Brock Lesnar would cost Cody the chance to go on to fight for the World Championship. And that's exactly what happened. Brock showed up, he laid out Cody with an F5, beat him up some more after the match, and then he issued a challenge to a fight. He told Cody, "I want to fight you at Night of Champions," and Cody has since accepted that challenge. So there's the rematch. The rematch between those two is now set. Rollins and Balor, it was interesting seeing them in the ring together one-on-one. That, of course, was the match to crown the first ever Universal Champion 7 years ago at SummerSlam, which went the way of Finn Balor until the next night when he had to forfeit the title. It went the opposite way this time. Seth Rollins beats Balor, and so Seth Rollins goes to the finals. On Friday night, we had AJ Styles, Edge, in a rare television match for Edge. He's had a few, but doesn't happen very often. And Rey Mysterio. That was the first triple threat. That was the better of the two. The other one was Austin Theory, Bobby Lashley, and Sheamus. And it ended up with AJ Styles beating Bobby Lashley in the semifinal later in the night. So this now sets up the final at Night of Champions with Seth Rollins, one-on-one with AJ Styles. And Seth Rollins is the natural first choice to be the World Heavyweight Champion. But the more I think about this, and the more I thought about it since the end of the show on Friday, there could be a method to their madness, and including SmackDown talent in this tournament. Now, don't get me wrong, it is stupid no matter how it all turns out. And this is kind of the long way of getting to where they could have gotten by just doing the draft a little bit differently. But AJ Styles has a shot here. I know Seth Rollins is going to be the favorite going in, and I still feel he's going to very likely come out of this with the world title. But AJ Styles has a shot here, and if he doesn't, then he should. And here's why. Most people probably think that Seth Rollins is winning. All right, instead, you have AJ Styles win. And you don't just have AJ win to swerve people, but I'm just saying, Rollins is probably the favorite going in. So you have AJ Styles win. Styles winning would mean that he gets transferred to Monday Night Raw. Now, they haven't explicitly said this, but it doesn't make sense any other way, because the title is a Raw brand belt. That was the whole genesis of this championship in the first place, was to give people on Monday Night Raw something to fight for because they don't have the balls yet to take the belts off Roman Reigns, right? So here we are. So AJ Styles would get transferred automatically, shifted over to Monday Night Raw. And Triple H said when the draft happened that, there will be transfers, and he didn't really expand on that. But when AJ was drafted to SmackDown, he was not drafted alone. He was drafted as part of a package deal with the rest of the OC. Right? It was Gallows and Anderson and Mia Yim. They all came to the show with AJ. Well, there's no reason for them not to be shifted back over as a package deal this time. You have Gallows, Anderson, and Mia Yim. They all come to Raw with him. In exchange, SmackDown needs a little something in return. They need a big name because they just lost 4 people. And who's a big name of equal or greater value that can be traded from Raw to SmackDown? I can think of one. Cody Rhodes. Cody goes to SmackDown, and that is how he gets to finish the story with Roman Reigns at SummerSlam, without the need for him to win the briefcase at Money in the Bank. They could keep that open for somebody else. And also, Cody could then wrestle a third match with Brock. Let's say Brock beats him at Night of Champions. Brock's a free agent. He can show up any show he wants. He could follow Cody to SmackDown. There's no rule against that. They could do the third match at Money in the Bank and have Cody go over in the final match, in the rubber match, instead of having him in the ladder match. And after beating Brock, that paved the way for him to challenge Roman Reigns. Meanwhile, over on Raw, Styles and Rollins, they can fight over the world title for a little while. And if you look at the rosters, it is actually plausible that they would want to shift the entire OC to Raw, not just AJ. When you look at the balance of factions between the two brands, right now Monday Night Raw has 3 groups. The Judgment Day, Imperium, and The Way. And The Way hasn't even really been established yet. They only first showed up together on Monday. That was, Johnny Gargano, Candice LeRae, Dexter Lumis, and Indy Hartwell were all shown together in the back. So I assume they're reuniting their group from NXT. And also, I love the little tease of Tommaso Ciampa coming back soon when Gargano said he's coming back. He didn't elaborate on who he is. But that was clearly a reference to Tommaso Ciampa. So if you include them, that's 3 groups. But then look at what SmackDown has. SmackDown has the Bloodline, the LWO, the OC, the Brawling Brutes, and Damage Control. Even though Damage Control looks like it's on its way out soon. So they could afford to lose the OC to the other show. It works. And then I look ahead even further. I look at Gunther. Gunther has been the Intercontinental Champion for 335 days, as of today. The Honky Tonk Man's record is 454 days. To beat the record, he would have to hold on to the championship until September 8th. That's very doable. It gives them time to have him drop it sometime after that, so that he could challenge for the World Heavyweight Title at next year's WrestleMania against Seth Rollins. Because Rollins is ultimately going to be the World Heavyweight Champion. Even if AJ wins it first, maybe they even trade it back and forth. Rollins is going to end up with that belt. But we could end up getting Rollins and Gunther for the World Heavyweight Championship at WrestleMania 40 next year. So I'm looking ahead to what the overall picture looks like for the Monday Night Raw brand, and that's the way that I would map that out. Because once Gunther is unshackled from the Intercontinental title, the only place for him to go is up, which is competing for whatever that top prize is on Monday Night Raw. That's what he should be fighting for. It makes it a lot less likely so long as he has the Intercontinental Championship. So if they want him to break the record, September is when it happens. And again, the timeline works to then build him up heading into WrestleMania. Now, as far as, this World Heavyweight title, I've called it a consolation belt, and sometimes it pisses people off. I don't really give a shit. I call it that for a very simple reason. It's the consolation belt because they don't want to take the 2 existing ones off of Roman Reigns, who has been unbeatable for 3 years. And a good number of names on that Raw brand who are going to be challenging for it are guys who already wrestled Roman and failed. Cody Rhodes, Seth Rollins. Rollins may not have lost. I think he actually beat Roman by DQ when they wrestled last time, but he didn't win the title either. He had the chance. He did not win the title. He failed. So did Drew McIntyre and Matt Riddle and Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. It is a consolation belt. You know who it wouldn't be a consolation belt for? AJ Styles and Gunther. Neither one of them wrestled Roman during this forever run that he's on right now. Right? So there are certain people where it would not be a consolation prize. WWE is said to have some sort of plan in place to make the championship mean something. That's the latest report this week that I saw floating around. They have a plan. They're going to try to put this championship on equal footing with the other titles on SmackDown. I don't know how they're going to do that. I don't know what their plan is, but one way to do that is to populate the title picture on Raw with people who did not already lose and were sacrificed to Roman Reigns. And speaking of Roman Reigns, he returned on SmackDown Friday night, his first appearance on television since the night after WrestleMania. And they had a segment in the ring with the Bloodline where Roman took the Usos to task for dedicating their championship match against Owens and Zayn to him and then losing. He said, you dedicate a match to me? I'm not even a tag team wrestler. We have a Hall of Fame, Hall of Fame roster of tag teams in this family, and you dedicate your tag team match to me? And then you lose? Of course, he put over Solo Sikoa, but he was going in pretty hard on the Usos, and it looked like Jimmy was about to get up in his face. When he was pushing Jimmy around, Jey Uso stepped in to kind of calm things down and said, we apologize. And they said, look, one more shot. We want to get one more shot at Owens and Zayn. And we will bring the gold home to the Bloodline. And that's when Paul Heyman dropped the bomb that at Night of Champions, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn are going to defend the tag team titles against the Bloodline. But it's not going to be against the Usos. It's going to be against Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa. They're going to go for Roman 4 belts. Normally at these Night of Champions shows, all the titles are defended. And yet the 2 top titles in the company are unified, and neither of which are being defended. At least not as of this moment. That's lame. And the fact that Roman Reigns is going to hit 1,000 days as Universal Champion that weekend, and he's not even defending the title, that's very lame. And it makes me think about this Bloodline story. This storyline has been the best in years. I've given WWE their flowers for this storyline now for months. It has its peaks and valleys, and the stuff with Sami Zayn and what they did at the Royal Rumble. I mean, it was poetry, right? In terms of pro wrestling. I cannot say enough good things about this Bloodline storyline up to this point. But it has lost a lot of steam since WrestleMania. I'm still enjoying it, but I fear we've already passed the peak. And I only hope that they can stick the landing now, because so many great stories have been ruined by screwing up at the very end. And maybe ruined is too strong of a word. They were still great stories up to a point, but they either had a lame ending or they had no real ending at all. Right? The NWO angle in WCW stands out the most. That thing just went on for too long. Never had a proper ending to it. It just sort of fizzled out. They ran that shit into the ground. The Nexus angle, where WWE completely screwed up the entire thing. I mean, it was hot for 2 months, and then it wasn't, because of the booking. The Summer of Punk in 2011, when CM Punk was white hot there for a few weeks, and they thought, you know what this story needs? Kevin fucking Nash. It's like something a random storyline generator would spit out when you push the button. And then the cherry on the shit Sunday, when Nash couldn't do the match, they had Triple H beat CM Punk. It's almost impressive how badly they botched that whole thing. Now, Punk ended up doing okay for himself, but it just wasn't the same after that. That small little period there in the summer of 2011 could have been so much more, and it just wasn't the same after that. This story deserves a dramatic payoff, not to be dragged out to the point where people stop caring, and I hope that's not what happens. Maybe it already has for some people. Maybe some people stopped caring after WrestleMania, when Roman won. But I would hate for this thing to kind of fizzle out the way some of those other stories have.